They don't fall in love when you chase them. They don't love you more when you beg, explain, or try harder. An avoidant starts loving you deeper the moment they feel safe losing you. Because that's when they finally realize what your presence meant. I loved someone who never ran toward love, they walked away from it. Every time emotions got close, they stepped back. Not because they didn't feel anything, but because feeling too much scared them. I used to think love meant proving myself, explaining my feelings, holding tighter when they pulled away. But with an avoidant heart, love doesn't bloom under pressure, it withers. What changed everything wasn't a dramatic confession or a perfect moment. It was silence, not the cold kind, but the peaceful kind that says, I trust myself enough to let you choose. When I stopped chasing, they started thinking. When I stopped explaining, they started remembering. When I stopped trying to be unforgettable, they realized I already was. Avoidant love grows in the quiet moments. When you respect their space without disappearing. When you stay warm without demanding closeness. When you love without asking them to be someone they're not. I learned that emotional safety is the language they understand. No ultimatums. No emotional ambushes. Just steady presence and unshakable self-respect. And something beautiful happened. They began leaning in, not because they were pushed, but because they finally felt free. An avoidant loves you 50 times more when they realize your love is a gift, not a need. When they see you choosing yourself, yet still choosing them. When they understand that losing you wouldn't break you, but it would haunt them. Love doesn't trap an avoidant. Love invites them. And when you stop forcing the invitation, they finally knock on the door themselves. I learned this the slow way, through loving someone who flinched at closeness the way others flinch at pain. Every time emotions deepened, they pulled back, not because they didn't care, but because caring felt unsafe. With an avoidant heart, love isn't frightening when it's absent, it's frightening when it arrives too loudly. I used to think love meant intensity. Long talks, urgent messages, emotional honesty delivered all at once. But to them, that kind of love felt like pressure, like expectations wrapping around their chest. They didn't need more words or more proof. They needed room to breathe inside the feeling. Emotional safety became the turning point. Not the kind that asks for reassurance every day, but the kind that stays calm even when distance appears. I stopped questioning every pause. I stopped demanding clarity before they were ready to give it. Instead, I stayed steady, warm, predictable in the softest way. For the first time, they weren't afraid of disappointing me. They weren't afraid of being overwhelmed by my needs. They could show up imperfectly without feeling like it would cost them everything. That's when love stopped feeling like a threat and started feeling like rest. Avoidant love grows when it isn't tested every moment. When silence isn't punished. When space doesn't mean abandonment. I didn't disappear, but I also didn't chase. I let connection exist without gripping it too tightly, and that quiet consistency spoke louder than any emotional plea ever could. They began opening up in pieces. Small stories, lingering glances, gentle questions about my day. Not because they were pushed there, but because safety invited them in. Love, for an avoidant, is built slowly, brick by brick, in an environment where nothing collapses if they step back for a moment. When they realized my love wasn't trying to consume them, they stopped running from it. When they felt accepted without conditions, their walls softened on their own. Emotional safety didn't make them distant, it made them brave enough to feel. And the more secure they felt, the deeper their attachment became, unfolding quietly, patiently, like a heart finally learning it doesn't have to hide to survive. I once believed that staying close was the only way to be remembered. That if I stepped back, even for a moment, love would forget me. But with an avoidant heart, closeness can blur feelings, while distance sharpens them. Space doesn't erase love for them, it gives it room to echo. When I stopped filling every silence, they began hearing their own thoughts. In the quiet, my absence became louder than my presence ever was. They noticed the way I used to laugh, the calm I brought into their chaos, the warmth that didn't demand anything in return. Distance didn't push them away, it pulled memory forward. Avoidants don't process emotions in real time. They feel later, alone, when no one is watching. While closeness overwhelms their nervous system, space allows reflection. In that space, love becomes a choice instead of a reaction. They replay moments. They question their own withdrawal. They wonder why the calm feels missing. I didn't create distance out of anger. I created it out of respect, for myself and for them. I stopped chasing answers that couldn't be given yet. I stopped rushing emotional conversations that made them shut down. And in that pause, something shifted inside them. They began reaching out first. Not with grand gestures, but with simple check-ins that meant more than 100 forced conversations. Distance taught them what connection actually felt like when it wasn't demanded. It showed them that love could exist without constant proximity. Space allowed them to miss me safely. To desire without fear. To realize that I wasn't trying to trap them in emotion, but offering a connection they could return to when ready. In absence, love became clearer, not weaker. For an avoidant, distance isn't rejection, it's a mirror. And in that mirror, they finally saw what closeness had never allowed them to see. The depth of what was forming between us, the comfort of my presence, and the quiet truth that some hearts only recognize love once they have enough space to feel it on their own terms. I used to believe that love was about proving myself, showing how much I cared, and bending myself in every direction to meet their expectations. But with an avoidant heart, nothing you do to earn their love matters as much as the way you carry your own self-worth. They are drawn not to desperation, but to quiet confidence. They notice when you respect yourself, when you hold your own space, when you honor your own needs alongside theirs. That's what makes them pause, reflect, and begin to desire you in a way that chasing could never achieve. Self-worth is magnetic. When I stopped lowering my standards or over-explaining my feelings, they started to see me differently. They began to notice that I wasn't someone to be taken for granted, that my time and attention had value, that I wasn't afraid to step away if love wasn't mutual. For an avoidant, this isn't arrogance, it's a signal that they are free to choose, and that freedom awakens something they rarely let themselves feel: longing. I learned that when I treated myself with love and respect, I wasn't just protecting my own heart, I was creating a space where they could safely feel theirs. Avoidants respond to stability, not drama. They respond to consistency, not pleading. They respond to a presence that doesn't vanish in fear or cling in neediness. When they sense that your love for yourself is unshakable, they begin to want to be near it, to merge with it, to see if they can match that strength without losing themselves. It's subtle at first. Small compliments, lingering glances, quiet gestures of appreciation that are not forced but emerge naturally because they see you value yourself. Every moment you honor your own boundaries, every time you show them that your happiness does not depend solely on their approval, they feel an internal shift. What once might have been indifference or avoidance begins to turn into curiosity, then into admiration, then into genuine desire. Self-worth doesn't demand love from them. It invites it. And in that invitation, an avoidant realizes that they want what they cannot take, that they crave what they cannot control, and that your presence is not just comforting, it's essential. The more you stand in your own value, the more they see that choosing you is a privilege, not an obligation. They begin to lean in slowly, not because they were forced, but because the reflection of your self-respect makes them recognize the love they've been denying themselves, the love they suddenly realize they cannot ignore, and the love they may have been too afraid to embrace before. I discovered that consistency is one of the quietest forms of love, especially for someone with an avoidant heart. They are not drawn to grand gestures or dramatic declarations. They are drawn to the gentle rhythm of someone who shows up, day after day, without demanding, without pressuring, without trying to fix or change them. Consistency doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't plead or push. It simply exists, steady and reliable, and that presence begins to plant a seed of trust that words alone could never grow. At first, it feels almost invisible. Sending a message at the same time every day, checking in with warmth but not urgency, being present in moments that matter without crowding them, all of this can seem small, even mundane. But for an avoidant, these small, steady acts communicate a powerful truth. Someone can love them without needing to control them, without needing to be constantly reassured, without demanding constant closeness. That realization starts to chip away at walls they've spent a lifetime building. I learned not to expect immediate results. Avoidants don't respond to love in real time. They measure it in patterns, in reliability, in the way someone's behavior remains gentle and predictable even when they are distant, distracted, or scared. Every time I remained steady, even when they pulled back, I gave them proof that my love wasn't conditional, that it didn't waver with fear or uncertainty. And slowly, that proof began to matter more than any words I could have said. Consistency also allows space for reflection. They begin to notice the subtleties of care, the way you listen without judgment, the way you respect their boundaries, the way your calm presence offers comfort instead of pressure. Over time, these small gestures accumulate into a sense of safety that is irresistible to someone who has spent so long fleeing intensity. The steady beat of your presence becomes a rhythm they can trust, a rhythm they begin to crave. By staying consistent without chasing, I gave them the freedom to approach love on their own terms. I wasn't trying to control their feelings or force a response. I was simply showing them that love could exist without expectation, that connection could thrive without suffocation, and that patience could create intimacy far deeper than urgency ever could. In that steady, quiet way, they began to lean in more often, to stay longer in moments that once would have felt threatening, and to open themselves to a depth of attachment they had never allowed before. I learned that control is the enemy of avoidant love. The more I tried to dictate how they should feel, how they should act, or when they should commit, the more they retreated. Avoidants don't respond to pressure, they respond to freedom. And freedom doesn't mean absence, it means releasing the need to steer their emotions, to demand proof, to chase what should arrive naturally. Letting go of control became the turning point in our love story, the moment when what felt impossible began to unfold. At first, it was terrifying. I had spent so long thinking love meant holding on tightly, guarding every word, monitoring every pause. But with them, every attempt to tighten my grip only pushed them further away. I had to trust not only them, but myself, and believe that love could survive even if I didn't orchestrate every interaction. That trust, once given freely, became a powerful magnet for connection. When I stopped trying to control outcomes, the avoidant began choosing me, not because I demanded it, but because I offered a presence that felt safe and unconditional. The absence of pressure allowed them to notice the love that had always been there, the warmth that hadn't tried to suffocate them, the patience that didn't demand instant reciprocation. In that space, they began to want me in ways they never had when I was pushing, planning, or persuading. Freedom within love is a paradox. Letting go doesn't mean losing them, it means giving them the room to want you without fear. They feel the subtle invitation, the choice laid before them without coercion, and it awakens a deep desire that control could never provoke. Every time I resisted the urge to chase, they leaned in. Every time I honored my own boundaries instead of bending to chase theirs, they recognized value, not only in me, but in the love they had been denying themselves. Letting go of control also meant embracing uncertainty. I could no longer predict their responses or manage their emotions, but I discovered that love without control is stronger, more magnetic, more resilient. Avoidants are drawn to authenticity, not performance. They notice when you are centered in yourself, unafraid of loss, and able to remain loving without clinging. That strength invites them to meet you, not because they are forced, but because they see something in you they cannot create on their own, a love they can finally choose freely and fully. It was in releasing the need to direct the story that I realized an avoidant's heart could open wider than I ever imagined, responding not to demands, but to the gentle, unwavering freedom of a love that doesn't control, that doesn't chase, and that allows them to come willingly, again and again.